The fundamental source of human anxiety is resistance to two irrefutable, brutal facts of existence: that your life, your struggles, and your temporary presence matter far less to the world than you believe, and that everything you rely upon, your body, your relationships, your wealth, your very identity, is already in the process of dissolution. This resistance is exhausting. It is the friction that keeps you awake at night, the desperate chase for validation that leaves you hollow, the fear of loss that paralyzes your action. But there is a philosophy, ancient and battle-tested, that offers not a cure for this pain, but a sophisticated, permanent freedom from the suffering caused by fighting reality. That philosophy is Stoicism, and the freedom begins when you accept 7 unavoidable truths that shatter your illusions and redefine the very nature of success. This is the hard wisdom of the ages. It is the antidote to modern entitlement, the quiet shield against the external chaos. When you internalize these truths, you cease being a victim of fate and become the architect of your own unshakable tranquility. The journey begins with the acceptance that no one cares, not in the cruel, nihilistic sense, but in the purely objective, liberating sense. Truth 1. The opinion of others is air. The greatest trap that humanity builds for itself is the house of reputation. We invest staggering amounts of time, emotional energy, and resources into managing an entity that does not actually belong to us, the judgment of other people. We tailor our clothes, curate our achievements, choose our words, and even suppress our true beliefs, all to solicit a favorable, fleeting opinion from an audience that is, at best, distracted, and at worst, actively indifferent. Stoicism demands a radical reclassification of external opinion. It is not an asset, it is not a necessity, it is not even real. It is merely air, it is noise, it is a thing entirely outside the perimeter of your control. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire, holding the most scrutinized position on earth, constantly reminded himself, why do you value the applause of people who will quickly forget you? The very people whose opinions you chase are themselves flawed, inconsistent, and often driven by the same irrational fear and vanity that drives you. Their judgments today will contradict their judgments tomorrow. Their praise is often based on superficiality, not genuine understanding of your character. The moment you seek external validation, you surrender your power. You make yourself a slave to the volatile whims of 10,000 strangers. If their opinion grants you worth, then their disapproval can seize it back instantly. You become an emotional hostage. The freedom begins when you understand the fundamental asymmetry of effort and reward in this transaction. You exhaust yourself in virtuous action, in honest labor, in profound creation, all things internal and up to you. But the reward you seek, the favorable opinion, is entirely external, ephemeral, and prone to corruption. You cannot guarantee its arrival, and you cannot guarantee its longevity. The self-building process requires a surgical detachment from reputation. You must ask yourself throughout the day, am I acting this way because it is the right thing to do, or because I want others to see that I am acting rightly? If your motivation is rooted in the latter, you are draining your virtue and building a performance, not a self. Accepting that no one cares liberates your energy. The time you previously spent worrying about how your actions would be interpreted, or what your rivals were saying, or whether your latest achievement garnered enough recognition, is now reclaimed. That energy is poured directly back into the only thing that truly matters: the quality of your character and the diligence of your work. Your true judge resides within. When you commit to satisfying your own conscience, to acting with justice, temperance, wisdom, and courage, you become invulnerable to external critique. If 1,000 people call you a fool, and you know in your heart that you acted with integrity and reason, their noise means nothing. They can only harm your reputation, they cannot harm your soul. This is the great unburdening. This is the first taste of freedom, when you fully accept that the vast cosmos is indifferent to your petty dramas, and that the vast majority of people are entirely preoccupied with their own dramas. You stop seeking permission to be yourself. You stop seeking validation for your worth. You simply are. The opinions of others are merely opinions. They are not facts about your worth. They are not tools for your growth. They are air. Let them pass. Truth 2. You are not the center of the universe. The ego demands that we place ourselves at the heart of reality. We believe that our problems are the most urgent, our suffering is the most profound, and that the external world is fundamentally organized to either reward or punish our efforts. This belief system is the source of entitlement, resentment, and chronic disappointment. Stoicism insists upon the view from above, the cosmic perspective. You must shrink yourself to your true proportion. Look at the endless expanse of time. The span of your life is a flicker, a brief moment between two eternities. Look at the vastness of the universe. Your location, your city, your house, your personal struggles is an infinitesimal speck. And look at the flow of humanity. Millions have lived and died before you, millions will follow. When you internalize this reality, two things happen simultaneously. First, your pride is rightly humbled. Your failures and triumphs, which felt so monumental yesterday, are revealed as transient, microscopic events. This realization alleviates the stress of self-importance. Why spend tremendous emotional energy worrying about a microscopic event that will vanish entirely in 50 years? Second, this perspective clarifies your duty. If you are not the center of the universe, what is your role? Your role is not to dominate or to achieve eternal fame, for neither is possible. Your role is simply to be a good component of the whole, to serve humanity, to act justly toward those immediately around you, to exercise reason while you possess it. This is the shift from selfish ambition to purposeful contribution. If someone cuts you off in traffic, the ego screams, "How dare they disrespect me?" The Stoic perspective recognizes that the driver is likely distracted, driven by their own urgency, or simply flawed. Their action has nothing to do with you, personally. It is a natural consequence of living in a world populated by 7 billion imperfect humans. When you cease to personalize every external event, you cease to be offended by every external event. The freedom from self-centeredness is the freedom from constant emotional reactivity. If a plan fails, the ego collapses into victimhood. Why does this always happen to me? The Stoic self accepts the plan failed because external factors' indifference did not align. This is the nature of the world. Now, how do I apply reason to this new reality? Accepting that you are not the center means accepting the natural, impartial laws of reality, gravity, entropy, probability, and human fallibility. The universe is not conspiring against you, it is simply operating. This realization is the foundation of genuine humility, which is not self-abasement, but accurate self-assessment. Your ability to reason and choose your character is the only thing truly exceptional about you. Everything else, your advantages, your resources, your physical attractiveness, is external and temporary. When you step out of the spotlight of your own ego, you can finally see the world clearly. You see the true scale of things, and this clarity allows you to deploy your limited time and energy not on trying to manipulate the vast, uncaring cosmos, but on perfecting the small, powerful sphere of your own will. This internal focus is where all meaningful, sustainable success originates. No one cares about your personal drama, and that is a gift. It means the only person you have to impress is the person you see in the mirror. Truth 3. Your possessions are borrowed. One of the most insidious anxieties that shackles the modern person is the fear of losing what they have accumulated. We define ourselves by our assets, our house, our car, our career, even our perfect physique. Because we equate having with being, the inevitable loss of these things feels like a death of the self. The Stoic truth is simple and brutal. You own nothing. Everything is loaned. Epictetus taught us to view every external good, from a beautiful vase to a beloved family member, as merely having been granted to us by fortune for a period of time. When that time is up, fortune reclaims them. We must not be emotionally distraught, but mildly inconvenienced, like a librarian returning a book. This is the philosophical practice of premeditatio malorum applied to possessions. You must routinely contemplate the loss of what you cherish. You must mentally rehearse the fire that consumes your house, the market crash that wipes out your savings, the illness that takes your health. This is not a morbid exercise, it is an inoculation. It strengthens the mind against the shock of inevitability. When the loss occurs, it is not an unanticipated tragedy, but a premeditated event. The freedom found in accepting the transience of possessions is profound. If you know that the object or the status is inherently temporary, you stop relying on it for your internal stability. You use it fully and appreciate it while it is here, but you do not attach your identity to it. Imagine a man who defines himself by his wealth. When the wealth is gone, his self collapses. He is ruined, not financially, but psychologically. Now imagine the man who defines himself by his discipline, his integrity, and his capacity for hard work. When his wealth is gone, he sees it as a practical setback. The valuable part, the ability to rebuild, the competence, the character, remains intact. The world does not care how much you possess. It will take it all back eventually. Your internal self-worth, however, is the one asset that the world cannot touch. It is the only thing that is truly yours, because you build it with your choices. The acceptance that possessions are borrowed leads to a life of voluntary simplicity and non-attachment. It allows you to use your resources virtuously, to aid others, to pursue knowledge, to maintain your health, rather than hoarding them out of fear or chasing more out of vanity. The moment you cease to fear loss, you are free. You have cut the chains binding you to the whims of the economy, the caprice of fashion, and the randomness of fate. This is the power of internal poverty, the realization that you need nothing external to be a good, fulfilled human being. This radical detachment is not apathy, it is the ultimate psychological preparedness. When you are ready to lose everything, you gain the composure to handle anything. Truth 4. The past is dead, the future is unborn. We now pivot from the realization that no one cares about our external lives to the second, equally brutal truth: everything changes. The only absolute constant in the universe is flux, the perpetual movement from what was to what will be. Most of our mental distress arises from living in the wrong temporal zone. We are either haunted by the past, regret, injury, what should have been, or paralyzed by the future, an anxiety, worry, what might happen. We rarely inhabit the now, which is the only place where virtue can be practiced and self-building can occur. The Stoic acceptance of change demands a ruthless confrontation with time. The past is an immutable block of stone. It is fact. No amount of worry, rumination, or regret will change one single detail of what has already transpired. When we relive past errors, we are simply choosing to re-injure ourselves, offering our present happiness as tribute to a dead event. The world does not care about your past mistakes, it only cares about your present actions. The freedom here is found in turning the past into a school, not a prison. The only utility of the past is the data it provides. Did I act poorly? Learn the lesson. Did I fail? Analyze the faulty premise. Did I suffer injustice? Recognize the common fate of man and strengthen your resolve. Once the lesson is extracted, the memory must be filed away, neutralized of its emotional sting. The future is equally out of our hands. It is unwritten, uncertain, and filled with infinite potential pitfalls. To worry about the future is to suffer imaginary evils, to pay the debt of misfortune before it is even due. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Worrying about what might happen is the most profound waste of the only resource you truly possess: the present moment. The future does not exist until it is the present, and by then you will have the virtue and reason you have been building now to deal with it. The freedom of accepting relentless flux is the commitment to the present moment, prosoche, or constant vigilance. This instant, the words being heard, the breath being drawn, the choice being made, is the only arena of true power. The universe is indifferent to your long-term plans, and they will undoubtedly be disrupted by chaos. But the quality of your effort right now is entirely within your control. When you fully surrender to the reality that everything changes, that your job, your relationship, your health, the political climate will all be radically different in 5 years, the urge to rigidly control and fix the present disappears. You stop fighting the tide. Instead, you focus on developing the internal skills necessary to navigate the inevitable change with grace and competence. This acceptance is not passivity, it is ultimate mental agility. It is the ability to pivot without panic, to rebuild without regret, and to live fully today without sacrificing today's peace for tomorrow's phantom anxieties. Truth 5. All people are flawed and driven by error. We are social animals, and much of our disappointment and anger stems from the unmet expectation that others should behave rationally, kindly, or ethically toward us. We hold people to standards of perfection that they, being human, are fundamentally incapable of meeting. This disappointment is a self-inflicted wound. The Stoic truth demands acceptance of the universality of human imperfection. Every person you encounter, your spouse, your boss, your friends, the politician you despise, is operating under an error of judgment, a flawed premise, a moment of weakness, or simple ignorance. The world does not care about your sense of moral fairness. It simply delivers flawed people in continuous streams. Your suffering comes from judging them based on what they should be, rather than accepting them for what they are. Marcus Aurelius kept a list of anticipated annoyances. Today I shall meet with the meddling, the ungrateful, the arrogant, the treacherous, the envious, the unsociable. He did this not to breed cynicism, but to inoculate himself against surprise. He knew that these behaviors were inevitable consequences of flawed human nature. The freedom here is the freedom from resentment and personal offense. When someone acts unjustly toward you, the non-Stoic takes it personally and demands retribution or apology. This means you grant the flawed person power over your internal peace. The Stoic accepts the act as a predictable consequence of ignorance. Their malice stems from their own suffering or misconception. The universe does not owe you perfect behavior from others. Your only duty is to ensure your response is governed by justice and temperance. When you truly accept that no one cares about your feelings of indignation, and that every individual is a work in progress, often a very slow one, you stop taking their actions as declarations about your worth. You realize their actions are declarations about their flawed state. This frees you to exercise true justice, which involves empathy and clarity. You correct harmful behavior where necessary, but you do so without anger, recognizing that the person is afflicted by a sickness of the mind. This understanding is particularly vital in close relationships. If you expect a partner to be an unfailing source of perfect support and rational behavior, you will be constantly hurt. If you accept that your partner is a flawed human being trying their best within their own cognitive limitations, you can meet their imperfection with patience and compassion, rooted not in sentimentality, but in reasoned acceptance of reality. The acceptance of human flaw is the end of perpetual disappointment and the beginning of constructive, peaceful interaction. It is the realization that the work of correcting others is exhausting and usually futile. The work of correcting oneself is infinitely more productive. Truth 6. Your body is a temporary vessel. The ultimate realization of impermanence is mortality. Everything changes, and you, the center of your consciousness, are no exception. The body is a vehicle for your reason, least for a limited time. It is already decaying. The modern world wages a perpetual war against this truth, chasing eternal youth, health, and vigor, often at the cost of present happiness and wisdom. This anxiety is rooted in the belief that our physical existence is the core of our being. The Stoic truth is that the body is an indifferent. While preferred over illness, its condition does not determine the quality of your character. You can exercise full virtue, courage, temperance, wisdom, and justice, whether your body is healthy or ravaged by disease. The self is the mind, the governing principle, the faculty of choice. Accepting that your body is a temporary vessel frees you from the tyranny of physical vanity and the pervasive fear of sickness and pain. If you know the vessel will eventually fail, you stop investing your entire identity in its outward appearance or strength. You use it responsibly, keeping it functional for the practice of virtue, but you remain emotionally detached from its inevitable decline. The world does not care about your pain. Pain is a biological signal, neutral in its occurrence. Our suffering comes from the judgment we attach to it. This is intolerable, or this should not happen to me. The freedom here is found in the relentless practice of enduring discomfort. We train ourselves through voluntary hardship, early rising, simple diet, rigorous exercise, to tolerate the small discomforts, so that when true pain or illness arrives, the mind is not shocked into submission. Seneca advised us to practice poverty in the midst of wealth, to eat plain food, wear simple clothes, and sleep hard, so that when fortune changes, we are already psychologically prepared for the lesser life. This is the practical preparation for the physical decline. The greatest freedom mortality grants is clarity. If you truly accept that your time is short and finite, that the ultimate change is unavoidable, you cease to waste time on trivial pursuits, envy, or meaningless distractions. The deadline sharpens your focus on the essential task, building your character. The self built on the foundation of the temporary vessel is a self that prioritizes purpose over pleasure, meaning over comfort. When the body finally fails, the true self, the virtuous will, remains triumphant, having fulfilled its duty to reason until the last possible breath. Truth 7. The only thing that never changes is your power to choose. We have examined 6 truths of indifference and impermanence: the irrelevance of external opinion, the humility of scale, the transience of possessions, the flow of time, the imperfection of others, and the decay of the body. These truths can seem overwhelming, even depressing, until they are synthesized into the final unifying truth. The ultimate freedom found in Stoicism is the understanding that amidst this ocean of uncaring chaos and perpetual change, there is one single, absolute constant: the power of your prohairesis, your faculty of choice, your rational will. Everything external is fleeting. Everything internal, which constitutes your character, your integrity, your judgment, your temperance, is entirely and eternally up to you. The world does not care if you are rich or poor, famous or unknown, healthy or sick. But you, the moral agent, care profoundly about how you handle these conditions. Your response is the only thing that cannot be taken from you. This is the sanctuary of the self. This is the unconquerable fortress of reason. The moment you fully accept that everything outside that fortress is irrelevant to your true worth, you realize you have already achieved complete freedom. No tyrant can compel you to think ill thoughts. No misfortune can force you to lose your composure. No pain can obliterate your ability to act with courage. The freedom is the realization that your character is non-negotiable and self-determined. The daily application of this truth is the discipline of the dichotomy of control. When faced with any situation, you instantly triage it. What is external and must be accepted? What is internal and must be acted upon? If an economic collapse happens external, you accept the loss of the resource. You then exercise your internal power of choice. Do I panic and despair, or do I apply wisdom, patience, and diligence to rebuild? If a rival slanders your name external, you ignore the noise. You then exercise your internal power of choice. Do I descend into bitterness and retaliation, or do I focus on demonstrating my true character through continued virtuous action? This final truth is the great synthesis that transforms the harshness of the first 6 into profound liberation. Yes, no one cares, and everything changes. And precisely because of that, because the world offers no external guarantee of happiness, stability, or validation, you are forced to find happiness, stability, and validation within. The power to choose your judgment, your attitude, and your effort is the ultimate, unalienable human possession. It is the one thing that never changes, even as the tides of fortune rage around you. The built self, anchored in this final truth, becomes immune to fear and sorrow. Fear is neutralized because the self is prepared for the worst external outcomes. Sorrow is neutralized because the self has learned to attach its happiness only to its internal, controllable state. This is the Stoic journey, a radical recentering from the fleeting external chaos to the constant, powerful interior command center. When you fully accept the indifference and impermanence of the world, you achieve the self-sufficiency that defines true freedom. You are liberated to focus, to act with purpose, and to live with tranquility, because you finally know where your true worth resides, and it is a place where no one can touch it. This process of liberation, however, requires more than intellectual assent. It demands continuous, demanding practice. The ego, accustomed to vanity and anxiety, resists this truth fiercely. We must constantly reinforce these 7 lessons. We must understand that embracing no one cares is the foundation of self-reliance, which is the precursor to competence. If you rely on external praise, your effort is fragile. If your effort is motivated by the inherent quality of the work and the development of your own skill, knowing that the finished product might be ignored, your dedication becomes unbreakable. This is the subtle shift from being driven by the audience to being driven by the craft. The master artisan perfects the reverse side of the sculpture that no one will ever see, because the quality of the hidden work is essential to the integrity of the whole. The true self is built in the hidden corners of your daily discipline. The integration of everything changes creates a powerful dynamic resilience. The person who fears change is constantly rigid, attempting to stabilize the unstable. They crack under pressure. The person who embraces change is fluid, like water. They recognize the new reality immediately and adapt their strategy, preserving their character while allowing the external forms to shift. This freedom allows for true, unwavering presence. When you are not clinging to the past or grasping at the future, you are fully available to the present task. This is the source of superior focus, profound engagement, and ultimately, higher quality output in any endeavor. The self we are building through these 7 truths is a self designed for endurance, not comfort. It is robust, not brittle. It measures success not by how much it gains, but by how little it needs. The ultimate success of accepting that no one cares and everything changes is the achievement of philosophical peace. It is the quiet contentment that comes from knowing you are doing your absolute best with the material available, and that the only necessary approval, that of your own conscience, has been secured. This is the freedom that no external condition can grant, and none can take away. We must dedicate extensive time now to the profound, practical cost of resisting these 7 truths, and the immense, liberating practical benefits of integrating them fully into daily cognition. The resistance to truth 1, the opinion of others is air, costs us authenticity. When we crave validation, we become chameleons, shaping our internal beliefs and external behaviors to fit the perceived expectations of our current environment. This results in a fractured, inconsistent self. You spend your life acting a role, which is exhausting, and you never truly know who you are when the curtain drops. The freedom of acceptance is the gift of consistency. When your worth is anchored in your internal adherence to virtue, you are the same person in the boardroom, in traffic, and alone in your reflection. This consistency is the structural strength of the built self. It eliminates the friction of psychological performance. The resistance to truth 2, you are not the center of the universe, costs us tranquility. The ego demands justice, fairness, and preferential treatment from a world that is inherently arbitrary. When the world fails to deliver as it always does, we feel personally affronted, leading to chronic frustration, indignation, and self-pity. The freedom of acceptance is the gift of objectivity. When you recognize that random events are random and that the universe owes you nothing, you stop expecting perfect outcomes. You meet reality where it is. This objectivity is the key to strategic thinking, allowing you to bypass emotional turmoil and focus immediately on problem solving. The resistance to truth 3, your possessions are borrowed, costs us genuine appreciation. When we fear loss, we are unable to fully enjoy what we possess in the moment, because the joy is tainted by the future anxiety of its disappearance. We are never truly present with our blessings. The freedom of acceptance is the gift of gratitude. By practicing negative visualization, the mental rehearsal of loss, we are shocked back into appreciation for the present reality. Every healthy day, every shared meal, every functional resource becomes a temporary magnificent bonus, savored fully precisely because we know its term is limited. Gratitude transforms external goods from sources of anxiety into sources of momentary joy. The resistance to truth 4, the past is dead, the future is unborn, costs us energy and focus. Living mentally in the past drains vitality through regret. Living mentally in the future dissipates energy through worry. Both conditions leave the present moment impoverished, making us ineffective where action is actually required. The freedom of acceptance is the gift of maximized effort. By ruthlessly focusing all mental resources on the immediate task, we maximize the quality of our action. This dedication to Procopton, daily progress, ensures that every moment is utilized for character building. You cannot change the past, and you cannot control the future, but you can perfect the present choice. The resistance to truth 5, all people are flawed and driven by error, costs us peace in relationships. We enter every social dynamic with inflated, irrational expectations, guaranteeing friction and frequent outbursts of anger. We attempt to control the uncontrollable element of human will. The freedom of acceptance is the gift of patience and functional justice. When you view others' failings through the lens of pity, recognizing their actions stem from ignorance, you are liberated from the need to respond with anger. You respond with measured correction if required, or simply with forbearance. This acceptance allows for compassionate service and eliminates the self-inflicted poison of resentment. The resistance to truth 6, your body is a temporary vessel, costs us our mental clarity and true priorities. The fear of physical decay often leads to extremes, either neglecting the body entirely out of denial or obsessively pursuing superficial longevity and appearance. Both distract from the core philosophical task. The freedom of acceptance is the gift of philosophical health. By understanding the body as merely an indifferent tool, we are motivated to care for it not out of fear of death, but out of respect for its necessity in practicing virtue. Health becomes a duty, not a chase. This detachment allows the internal self to assert its dominance, preparing for the transition of death with dignity. Knowing the true essence of the self cannot be extinguished by biological failure. The resistance to truth 7, the only thing that never changes, is your power to choose, is the ultimate surrender to external forces. It is the belief that circumstances dictate character, that if the external world is chaotic, one is justified in being internally chaotic. This resistance leads to psychological paralysis and victimhood. The freedom of acceptance is the absolute, defining victory of the Stoic self.
It is the knowledge that even when everything is taken away, the capacity to choose how you react, with courage or with fear, with reason or with passion, remains untouched. This is the unconquerable self. This knowledge is the source of profound, non-contingent joy, a joy rooted not in fortune, but in character. We must now explore the psychological mechanism of integrating these truths through the lens of continuous, detailed rehearsal. The mind, left to its own devices, defaults to anxiety and ego. These 7 truths must become the guiding mantras of your daily cognitive processing. Imagine your mind as a courthouse. Before these truths were internalized, every external event, an insult, a loss, a disappointment, was immediately brought before the emotional jury, resulting in swift, often disastrous, verdicts of victimhood and anger. The integration of the Stoic truths places reason as the cold, impartial judge who intercepts every impression before it reaches the emotional jury. When an insult arrives, Truth One opinion is air, immediately dismisses the case. It is irrelevant. It cannot harm you. No emotional energy is spent. When a project fails spectacularly, Truth 4, everything changes, and Truth 3, possessions are borrowed step in. The failure is merely data the project was an indifferent. The core self is undamaged. The judgment becomes analyze, learn, adapt. When a loved one disappoints you, Truth 5, all people are flawed, immediately offers context. They acted out of ignorance, not malice toward your essence. The judgment becomes forbearance and justice. This system of cognitive filtering, relentlessly applied, is the core work of self-building. The goal is to shrink the time gap between the external event and the reasoned, virtuous response. The faster you can deploy one of these 7 truths, the more tranquility you secure. This process is what separates the casual reader of philosophy from the true Procopton. The casual reader knows the truth. The practitioner uses the truth to reshape reality. The sheer difficulty of this commitment must not be understated. Modern society operates entirely on the rejection of these truths. We are constantly bombarded with messages demanding that we care intensely about what others think, social media, that we should feel entitled to stability and effortless success, consumerism, and that we must fear aging and loss, above all else, marketing. To live the Stoic life is to consciously step out of the dominant cultural paradigm. It requires a sustained internal rebellion against emotional inertia. This rebellion is where true, deep freedom is won. When you are no longer competing in the external game of comparison and acquisition, you discover the vast, untapped resources of your internal life. You reclaim the energy previously spent on performance and worry. Consider the energy drain of seeking external validation. Truth 1. Imagine a corporate executive obsessed with reputation. They must maintain a certain car, live in a certain area, manage their political affiliations carefully, attend endless superficial networking events, and never show vulnerability. Their life is an exhausting performance, designed to satisfy people who, ultimately, do not care about their well-being. The Stoic executive, having accepted Truth 1, acts with integrity because it is efficient and right. They focus solely on their duties and their character. They are liberated from performance anxiety. They can tolerate criticism and failure because their worth is not tied to the results. This radical freedom from external pressure gives them a massive competitive advantage: clarity, speed of action, and unshakable composure. This freedom applies equally to the experience of grief and loss. Truth 3 and 6. When a non-Stoic loses a loved one, the suffering is compounded by the judgment. This shouldn't have happened. It's unfair. This rebellion against nature prolongs and intensifies the pain. The Stoic acknowledges the pain of absence, the natural consequence of attachment, but immediately applies the principle. They were loaned to me by nature, and nature has reclaimed them. The loss is accepted as the inevitable condition of human affection. The focus shifts instantly to gratitude for the time granted and the duty to honor their memory by continuing to live virtuously. The pain is allowed its duration, but the compounding suffering of irrational protest is eliminated. This is the hard, rigorous peace that these 7 truths secure. It is a peace earned through rational acceptance, not through escapism or denial. To commit to this path is to commit to a life lived in constant, stark contrast to the unexamined life. You will be perceived as unnaturally calm, perhaps cold, perhaps overly reserved. You will be accused of lacking passion simply because your passions are governed by reason, not whim. But the built self knows that this external judgment is merely more air truth. 1. Your reward is not external applause, but internal invulnerability. The ultimate liberation is the recognition that the world's indifference is not a cosmic slight, but a massive opportunity. Because the world does not care, you are free to define your own meaning. You are free to pursue virtue without the crippling fear of failure, because failure in external matters cannot touch the only thing that counts: your character. These 7 Stoic truths are the blueprint for building a self that is self-contained, self-reliant, and truly successful. They shatter the illusions of control, stability, and importance, and in doing so, they grant the ultimate freedom. The freedom to be absolutely true to your highest self, regardless of the chaos raging outside your fortress walls. The work is hard, the acceptance is initially painful, but the result is a tranquility that no force on earth can disturb. This is the promise of Stoicism. This is the freedom of acceptance.